MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number Analysis. Fritz Zwicky, a memorable astrophysicist who coined the term supernova, was born in Varna, Bulgaria to a Swiss father and a Czech mother. Fritz Zwicky Varna. At the age of 6, he was sent to his grandparents who looked after him for most of his childhood in Switzerland. There, he received an advanced education in mathematics and physics. In 1925, he emigrated to the United States and continued his physics research at California Institute of Technology, Caltech. 1925 California Institute of Technology, Caltech. He developed numerous theories that have had a profound influence on the understanding of our universe in the early 21st century. 2-1. After being appointed as a professor of astronomy at Caltech in 1942, he developed some of the earliest jet engines and holds more than 50 patents, many in jet propulsion. 1942 Caltech, 50. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 01. Émilie du Châtelet, a French mathematician and physicist, was born in Paris in 1706. Émilie du Châtelet 1706. During her childhood, with her father's support, she was able to get mathematical and scientific education that most women of her time did not receive. In 1737, she submitted her paper on the nature of fire to a contest sponsored by the French Academy of Sciences, and it was published a year later. 1737 French Academy of Sciences, 1. In her book, Institutions de Physique, Émilie du Châtelet explained the ideas of space and time in a way that is closer to what we understand in modern relativity than what was common during her time. Institutions de Physique Émilie du Châtelet. Her most significant achievement was translating Isaac Newton's Principia into French near the end of her life. Principia. Émilie du Châtelet's work was not recognized in her time, but she is now remembered as a symbol of the Enlightenment and the struggle for women's participation in science. Émilie du Châtelet. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 02. Jaroslav Hayrovsky was born in Prague on December 20, 1890, as the fifth child of Leopold Hayrovsky. Jaroslav Hayrovsky 1890-1220 Prague Leopold Hayrovsky. In 1901 Jaroslav went to a secondary school called the Academic Gymnasium. 1901 Yaroslav Academic Gymnasium. Rather than Latin and Greek, he showed a strong interest in the natural sciences. At Czech University in Prague he studied chemistry, physics, and mathematics. Prague Czech University. From 1910 to 1914 he continued his studies at University College, London. 1910-1914 University College. Throughout the First World War, Jaroslav served in a military hospital. 1 Yaroslav. In 1926, Jaroslav became the first professor of physical chemistry at Charles University in Prague. 1926 Yaroslav Prague Charles University. He won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1959. 1959. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 03. Frederick Douglass was born into slavery at a farm in Maryland. Frederick Douglass, Maryland. His full name at birth was Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. He changed his name to Frederick Douglass after he successfully escaped from slavery in 1838. 1838 Frederick Douglass. He became a leader of the Underground Railroad, a network of people, places, and routes that helped enslaved people escape to the north. Underground Railroad. He assisted other runaway slaves until they could safely get to other areas in the north. As a slave, he had taught himself to read and write, and he spread that knowledge to other slaves as well. Once free, he became a well-known abolitionist and strong believer in equality for all people, including blacks, Native Americans, women, and recent immigrants. He wrote several autobiographies describing his experiences as a slave. In addition to all this, he became the first African American candidate for Vice President of the United States. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9, Number 04. American jazz pianist Bill Evans was born in New Jersey in 1929. Bill Evans 1929. His early training was in classical music. At the age of 6, he began receiving piano lessons, later adding flute and violin. 6. He earned bachelor's degrees in piano and music education from Southeastern Louisiana College in 1950. 1950 Southeastern Louisiana. He went on to serve in the Army from 1951 to 1954 and played flute in the 5th Army Band. 1951-1945. After serving in the military, he studied composition at the Mann School of Music in New York. Mann School of Music. Composer George Russell admired his playing and hired Evans to record and perform his compositions. George Russell Evans. Evans became famous for recordings made from the late 1950s through the 1960s. Evans 1950-1960. He won his first Grammy Award in 1964 for his album Conversations with Myself. Conversations with Myself 1964. Evans' expressive piano works and his unique harmonic approach inspired a whole generation of musicians. Evans. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9, Number 05. Gary Becker was born in Pottsville, Pennsylvania in 1930 and grew up in Brooklyn, New York City. Gary Becker 1930 Pennsylvania, Pottsville, New York City, Brooklyn. His father, who was not well educated, had a deep interest in financial and political issues. After graduating from high school, Becker went to Princeton University, where he majored in economics. Becker Princeton University. He was dissatisfied with his economic education at Princeton University because it didn't seem to be handling real problems. Princeton University. He earned a doctor's degree in economics from the University of Chicago in 1955. 1955 University of Chicago. His doctoral paper on the economics of discrimination was mentioned by the Nobel Prize Committee as an important contribution to economics. Since 1985, Becker had written a regular economics column in Business Week, explaining economic analysis and ideas to the general public. 1985, Becker Business Week. In 1992, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Science. 1992. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9, Number 06. Lillian Bland was born in Kent, England in 1878. Lillian Bland 1878 Kent. Unlike most other girls at the time, she wore trousers and spent her time enjoying adventurous activities like horse riding and hunting. Lillian began her career as a sports and wildlife photographer for British newspapers. Lillian. In 1910 she became the first woman to design, build, and fly her own airplane. 1910. In order to persuade her to try a slightly safer activity, Lillian's dad bought her a car. Lillian. Soon Lillian was a master driver and ended up working as a car dealer. Lillian. She never went back to flying but lived a long and exciting life nonetheless. She married, moved to Canada, and had a kid. Eventually, she moved back to England, and lived there for the rest of her life. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 07. Margaret Knight was an exceptionally prolific inventor in the late 19th century. Journalists occasionally compared her to Thomas Edison by nicknaming her a woman Edison. Margaret Knight 19, Edison Thomas Edison. From a young age, she built toys for her older brothers. After her father died, Knight's family moved to Manchester. Knight Manchester. Knight left school in 1850, at age 12, to earn money for her family at a nearby textile factory, where she witnessed a fellow worker injured by faulty equipment. Knight 1850-12. That led her to create her first invention, a safety device for textile equipment, but she never earned money from the invention. She also invented a machine that cut, folded and glued flat-bottomed paper bags and was awarded her first patent in 1871 for it. 1871. It eliminated the need for workers to assemble them slowly by hand. Knight received 27 patents in her lifetime and entered the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2006. Knight 27-2006. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 08. Wilbur Smith was a South African novelist specializing in historical fiction. Wilbur Smith. Smith wanted to become a journalist, writing about social conditions in South Africa, but his father was never supportive of his writing and forced him to get a real job. Smith studied further and became a tax accountant, but he finally turned back to his love of writing. Smith. He wrote his first novel, The Gods First Make Mad, and had received 20 rejections by 1962. The Gods First Make Mad 196220. In 1964, Smith published another novel, When the Lion Feeds, and it went on to be successful, selling around the world. 1964 Smith, When the Lion Feeds. A famous actor and film producer bought the film rights for When the Lion Feeds, although no movie resulted. When the Lion Feeds. By the time of his death in 2021 he had published 49 novels, selling more than 140 million copies worldwide. 20214914. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 09. Antony van Leeuwenhoek was a scientist well known for his cell research. Antony van Leeuwenhoek. He was born in Delft, the Netherlands, on October 24, 1632. 16321024 Delft. At the age of 16, he began to learn job skills in Amsterdam. 16 Amsterdam. At the age of 22, Leeuwenhoek returned to Delft. Leeuwenhoek 22 Delft. It wasn't easy for Leeuwenhoek to become a scientist. Leeuwenhoek. He knew only one language, Dutch, which was quite unusual for scientists of his time. But his curiosity was endless, and he worked hard. He had an important skill. He knew how to make things out of glass. This skill came in handy when he made lenses for his simple microscope. He saw tiny veins with blood flowing through them. He also saw living bacteria in pond water. He paid close attention to the things he saw and wrote down his observations. Since he couldn't draw well, he hired an artist to draw pictures of what he described. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9 Number 10. Bessie Coleman was born in Texas in 1892. Bessie Coleman 1892. When she was 11, she was told that the Wright brothers had flown their first plane. 11 Wright. Since that moment, she dreamed about the day she would soar through the sky. At the age of 23, Coleman moved to Chicago, where she worked at a restaurant to save money for flying lessons. 23 Coleman. However, she had to travel to Paris to take flying lessons because American flight schools at the time admitted neither women nor black people. In 1921, she finally became the first black woman to earn an international pilot's license. 1921. She also studied flying acrobatics in Europe and made her first appearance in an airshow in New York in 1922. 1922. As a female pioneer of flight, she inspired the next generation to pursue their dreams of flying. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9, Number 11. Paul Laurence Dunbar, an African-American poet, was born on June 27, 1872. Paul Laurence Dunbar 1872627. By the age of 14, Dunbar had poems published in the Dayton Herald. 14 Dunbar Dayton Herald. While in high school he edited his high school newspaper. Despite being a fine student, Dunbar was financially unable to attend college and took a job as an elevator operator. Dunbar. In 1893, Dunbar published his first book, Oak and Ivy, at his own expense. 1893 Dunbar Oak and Ivy. In 1895, he published the second book, Majors and Minors, which brought him national and international recognition. 1895, Majors and Minors. The poems written in standard English were called majors, and those in dialect were termed minors. Majors, minors. Although the major poems in standard English outnumber those written in dialect, it was the dialect poems that brought Dunbar the most attention. Majors, Dunbar. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 1, 2025, Unit 9, Number 12. Lithops are plants that are often called living stones on account of their unique rock-like appearance. Lithops. They are native to the deserts of South Africa but commonly sold in garden centers and nurseries. Lithops grow well in compacted, sandy soil with little water and extreme hot temperatures. Lithops. Lithops are small plants, rarely getting more than an inch above the soil surface and usually with only 2 leaves. Lithops 1. The thick leaves resemble the cleft in an animal's foot or just a pair of grayish-brown stones gathered together. The plants have no true stem and much of the plant is underground. Their appearance has the effect of conserving moisture. MTC. Good job.